Okay, so on to learning the principles of effective interruption-based marketing and advertising that do work already. If you want to know why John Smith buys what John Smith buys, then you've got to see the world through John Smith's eyes, right? Well, I would submit to you that if you want to know what John Smith sees, you'd first better understand how John Smith's brain works and how he makes decisions. To understand that, there are three major concepts I need to teach you. Three concepts that nobody else in the world of marketing understands, but three concepts that will make all the difference in the world to your marketing's effectiveness and, most importantly, in your company's profitability. The three things that you need to know about John Smith's brain are alpha mode, beta mode, and reticular activator. So let's talk about the first concept, what's called alpha brainwaves, or what we just call alpha mode for short. Simply put, this is the hypnotic state of running automatic patterns that allows your brain to habitually perform tasks without any conscious thought. You do this all the time. Let me give you an example. Have you ever driven to work before and when you got there you realized that you hadn't consciously seen anything along the way? That's called alpha mode. That's because since driving to work is a habitual pattern you run, you don't have to consciously think about it. On a conscious level, you can talk on the cell phone, listen to the radio, shave, put on makeup, whatever it is you do. But meanwhile, your brain can drive you to work with no conscious thought. Sometimes alpha mode, just think of it as mental sleepwalking or sleep mode. It can get you in trouble. I doubt that I'm the only person who after eating breakfast has put the cereal in the fridge and the milk back in the pantry. Now here's what alpha mode means in terms of marketing. People see and hear ads with their eyes and ears, but they don't notice them on a conscious level. If you open a newspaper, you'll be looking at maybe 70% ads and only 30% bona fide news articles. But because the ads are only seen on an alpha level, 9.9 times out of 10, you won't even consciously notice them at all. All you'll consciously see is the news, which is what you were there for in the first place. I think you get the picture about alpha mode. It's a pretty easy concept to grasp. So now what I want to do is move on to the second concept. It has to do with what's known as beta brainwaves, or what we just call beta mode for short. This is the brain's state of alertness or active engagement. It's like when you drive to work in a heavy thunderstorm and your hands are firmly gripped at 10 and 2 o'clock and your pupils are as big as dimes. You're sensitive to everything. You're in beta mode when you're watching a movie and the music is building to a crescendo in anticipation of something scary happening. You can think of beta as alert mode. Now here's what beta mode means in terms of marketing. It's when a person consciously notices your ad or marketing piece and therefore is open to suggestion and solutions and compels them to keep paying attention. The key now, and I hope this is obvious, is to get the prospect out of alpha mode and into beta mode, out of a subconscious haze, never seeing your ad or marketing piece, and into an alert mode where they're fully conscious and aware of what you're trying to communicate. Understanding how to do this is the beginning of your making a fortune in marketing. To understand, you've got to learn the third major concept about how John Smith's brain works, which is called the reticular activator. The reticular activator is the part of your brain that's on the lookout 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when you're asleep, for things that fall into one of these three categories. 1, things that are familiar or connected to you in some way. 2, things that are unusual, abnormal, shocking, or strange. And 3, things that are dangerous, threatening, or somehow problematic. So to sum up the three categories, they are things that are familiar, things that are unusual, and things that are problematic. So whenever the brain detects any of these kinds of things on a subconscious level, it sends a message to the conscious side of your brain that says, hey, wake up, there's something you need to pay attention to here. Whatever those things are, whatever those familiar, unusual, or problematic things are, we call them activators. Are you beginning to catch on now? Your brain's sending out this sort of radar on a subconscious level on a constant basis looking for activators. It's searching for things that are familiar, things that are unusual, or things that are problematic, things that require a conscious response. Whenever it finds one, that's it. It pokes your conscious brain and snaps it out of alpha sleep and into beta alert. See how that works? Let me give you an example. I bought a brand new SUV a couple of years ago, a Ford Excursion. They've stopped making them now because there just aren't a lot of people who want to drive around a 7,200-pound, 19-foot tank that gets maybe 11 miles to the gallon. Well, at the time, we had just had our fourth kid. I've got 5 now. And we needed something big enough that we could set the kids far enough apart so that they couldn't touch each other. The Excursion was the only vehicle that could do this. But I'm the kind of guy, I didn't want to have the exact same stinking car as everybody else. So I called my car guy and I said, hey, I want the Excursion. Get me the green one. He said, oh, you mean the emerald green one? That thing is beautiful. I said, no, I don't think it's the emerald green one. I said, I think they've got a different color green one also. Take a look. He said, well, they have this sort of army green looking one that I think is ugly and nasty looking. And I said, that's it. That's the one I want. The ugly army green colored one. I don't want anyone else to have one that looks like mine. So I get this big nasty green truck for my wife to drive. The kids loved it. They called it Shrek, the big ugly green monster. Guess what I found out? As we started to drive this green monstrosity around, I found out that there were other fools out there that drive this exact same big, ugly, green-looking beast also. I couldn't believe it. About 2 months after I got it, I was sitting outside Home Depot one Saturday while my wife was in grabbing a few things while I watched the kids in the truck. And I saw not one, not two, but 3 Shreks drive by while I was sitting there for less than 15 minutes. How is that possible? Who are these people? Well, that's the reticular activator at work. Because I have one, because it's familiar, the green truck has become an activator. When my subconscious radar picks one out of the crowd, it pokes my brain and says, "Hey buddy, check it out." But before, when Shrek wasn't familiar, my brain would see another ugly green excursion on a subconscious level, but it wouldn't notify me of anything. It wouldn't poke my brain. Back then, the truck wasn't an activator. Why not? Because it wasn't familiar, unusual, or problematic. It didn't snap me out of alpha sleep and into beta alert. It was just another truck in a sea of vehicles. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever met somebody for the first time and then 2 seconds later you realize that you've forgotten their name? It can be pretty embarrassing. I do it all the time. Usually people brush that off and say, well, I'm just not good with names, or I have a bad memory, something like that. But here's the real problem. When you meet somebody and you hear their name, that's an alpha level activity. If you meet a guy named Fred Jones, that's actually a habitual event. Since the name Fred Jones or Steve Johnson or Rich Harshaw for that matter is not unusual, nothing pokes your brain and says, huh? So you never really hear the name in the first place. Trying to remember Fred Jones's name 2 seconds after being introduced is about like asking you to recite what company's ads were on the newspaper page that you just turned 2 seconds ago, or what the billboard said that you just passed at 75 miles an hour. You don't know because you never consciously noticed in the first place. But what if you meet somebody who's introduced to you as Hubert Hinklemeyer, or Elmo Fuddpucker, or Cornelius Oglethorpe, or what about somebody named Michael Jordan, or George Bush, or Connie Chung? Not the real ones, just people with those names. You'll most likely take notice and remember. I remember I did an interview a while ago in Minnesota with a guy from Russia. His name was Yosef. When we first met and he told me that his name was Yosef, I thought it was just his accent. So I asked him, excuse me, did you say Joseph? He said, no, Yosef with a Y. I thought to myself for a split second, I've never heard that name before, but no big deal. I didn't really think twice about it, but I did notice it. My reticular activator heard that name, determined that it was an unusual name, poked my conscious brain, and said, hey, pay attention, there's something unusual going on here. But here's the interesting part. When I got out of the interview with him, I picked up the USA Today, and on the front page there was an article about 2 Israeli youth who had been killed in a car bombing. The first one's name was, Yosef with a Y. Now how's that possible? I'd never heard that name in my life up to that point, and now, in 1 hour, I've heard it twice. Why? Because the first time I heard it, it was unusual. It was strange to me. So that name took me out of alpha sleep and snapped me into beta alert. My reticular activator is what detected the disconnect. Then, after that, because the name was now familiar to me, it picked it right out of the newspaper article with ease. See? It's the reticular activator. It's always looking for things that are familiar, unusual, or problematic. In the case of Yosef, the first time, it was unusual. Then the second time, when I saw it in the newspaper, it was familiar. But with the same reaction, right? I noticed the name. All of this happens on a subconscious level. No thinking involved. I'm sure this has happened to you too before. Can you think of some examples? Those 2 examples were about how the reticular activator finds things that are unusual and familiar. The reticular activator is also always on the lookout for things that are threatening or problematic. In my house, this is what wakes Mama up in the middle of the night when the baby's crying. Her reticular activator's got its radar going even when she's asleep, so she hears the baby cry and her brain says to her, hey, he ain't waking up, so you're going to have to take care of this. See? That's problematic. Meanwhile, my reticular activator hears the baby and tells my brain, hey, don't worry about it. She's got it covered. Stay asleep. See? No problem, no activator. Not to stereotype genders, but this is also true in my house. My wife is the one who wakes up in the middle of the night when she hears a strange noise downstairs. My brain hears the noise and says, hey, don't worry about it. She'll handle it if there's anything to it. Her brain hears the sound and says, he ain't waking up. You'd better investigate. Of course, this always backfires on me because she wakes me up anyway to go check the noise. So here I am traipsing downstairs in the middle of the night in my underwear holding a baseball bat. The official uniform of strange noises in the middle of the night, right? Like I'm hoping to find a guy down there in his underwear with a ball. But it's the reticular activator that's doing the snapping from alpha sleep mode into beta alert mode when something problematic is detected. So what does all this have to do with marketing then? The short answer is everything. Understanding the reticular activator is what's going to get us past interrupt and on to engage. See, if we can engage the prospect, we've just increased our chances of selling something by 1,000 times. This is going to solve the problem that Al Rees, Seth Godin, Donald Deutsch, and Sergio Zyman and every other marketer hasn't been able to figure out, which is not just getting them interrupted, but also getting them engaged. Not just finding any activator, but finding the right activator. Marketing's first job is to interrupt the prospect to get them to snap out of alpha mode into beta. This is done by finding out what kinds of things will resonate in your prospect's reticular activators and do what I just said. Snap them into beta mode. If you understand what I just talked about, then you'll see that this is actually very easy to do. The monkeys over on Madison Avenue do it all the time. Those monkeys in the big ad agencies on Madison Avenue prefer to use activators that are based on things that are familiar and unusual because they're the easiest to pull off. Have you ever noticed how many different kinds of animals you see in advertising? That's because animals are familiar and likable. And the idea is that those animals will interrupt you by poking your conscious brain when they're detected by your reticular activator. Budweiser has frogs and lizards, Gateway Computers has a cow, Coca-Cola has polar bears, Energizer has a bunny, Merrill Lynch has a bull, Aflac has a duck, and Microsoft has a butterfly, albeit a goofy-looking butterfly. All of these animals have good interrupt value based on their familiarity. That's the major reason that the big advertisers use celebrities also. Yes, it's true that celebrities lend credibility, but believe it or not, that's not the main reason they're used. People know on a conscious level that the Buick Rendezvous isn't any better because Tiger Woods drives one on the commercial. Everyone also knows good and well that Tiger Woods doesn't really drive a cheesy low-end SUV like that anyway in real life. You know that that guy probably drives a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or a Hummer or something like that. Anything but a rendezvous, but Buick doesn't care because they know that as soon as your reticular activator detects Tiger's presence in the room via your television set on that commercial, they know that it'll poke your brain and say, "Hey, wake up, Tiger's on the tube." Then you see the rendezvous. Now, Buick is in a position to sell. They are in a position to sell, that is, if they can now move you from being merely interrupted to becoming engaged, which incidentally, they don't do. Getting the prospect engaged is going to require knowing what you're about to learn here. And what about activators based on unusual things? That's what creativity is all about. Creativity's main purpose in advertising is to dream up something so weird, so strange, so shocking, so unusual that it will do exactly what we've been talking about for the last several minutes, which is snap you out of alpha mode and into beta mode, otherwise known as interrupt. If a guy named Yosef instead of Joseph will do that, just think what a what's up or a dancing baby or an SUV driving 90 degrees up the side of a cliff will do. Then they take something familiar like a frog and make it do something unusual like talk, and now they're doing a reticular activator double whammy, something that's familiar and unusual at the same time. It's the creative retard's panacea. And what about sex? You've probably heard that sex sells. True? Actually, it's not true. Sex interrupts. If something sexy is put in an advertisement that you weren't expecting, then boom, you're interrupted.